Hello, everyone. Donna Miller here from C3 Workplace, and I am delighted to be here with Cal Thomas from Sandler Training. We are doing a bonus episode to the NJBIA Sales and Marketing Roundtable powered by C3 Workplace and Paradigm Marketing and Design. We had such a great event that Cal was gracious enough to jump on this little Zoom call and answer some of the Q&A. We had so much Q&A, we couldn't get to it. It was very, very exciting. So thank you, Cal, for joining us this afternoon. And I'm going to jump right into some of the questions that our audience had. Question number one, Mr. Thomas. What are some of the best practices for selling to the C-suite of large corporations? I know you deal with this a lot, so help our audience with this topic.
Donna, that's well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for doing this, and you did a great job moderating, and you got Dave to have a little fun, which is always a challenge sometimes, but it was good stuff. So we get this question all the time, Donna, and it is a struggle for a lot of people. And I think one thing people struggle with is there's one universal rule in sales, there aren't a lot of them, and it's the higher you start, the better off you are. I learned from my father 25 years ago, it's okay to call CEOs of big companies, and guess what? They do answer their phone or they get someone to call you back. Right? They just gotten out of delegation school, so they got nothing to do except, they want to talk to somebody. So that's certainly one. I have a personal rule for my practice here. I don't chase large corporations unless I can get an introduction to somebody there. And they may not be the person who's responsible, but they will tell the person or request that they do that. And networking is one. And the last one I'll throw out. And the point is to have a cadence. I think Dave mentioned having a cadence. What are your phone call? What are your routines? How do you network? And the other is engage them in conversation on LinkedIn. And don't be salesy. Right? I'll steal a line from my colleague Danny Wood. He said, people show up with commission breath. And if anyone's getting that sense from us in a sales role, their walls and their defenses go right up. And that's why people have this perception it's hard to sell to the C-suite. And it doesn't need to be.
Gotcha. Okay, so some tips for selling to the C-suite is work at an intro, go at a high level, use LinkedIn. The other thing I would add to that, and it's a LinkedIn and it's another thing, is I will set up a Google alert. So if I've got the whales that I'm trying to go after, I'll set up a Google alert. I'll follow them on Sales Navigator, which I'm a big fan of. I know we'll talk about LinkedIn in a minute, but this way you're demonstrating how you do business. It's again that process of building know, like, trust, try.
Exactly. And I'll throw one more out, and I don't know if Dave mentioned this or not. I did one this morning about 7 o'clock. I recorded a video and I sent it to the CEO and executive VP of sales to a whale down the road. They've already watched it.
That's great. And that's a great lead into the next question, which is, and we touched on it, but it's important and it's not going anywhere. So talk to us about how to connect in this virtual world that we're living in.
Yeah, that's good. About, in the Sandler world, we talk about bonding and rapport. How to connect, and I probably put it in yesterday, pick up the phone. People are talking to people. Some people say they can't do it. Maybe they're not doing it well. I don't know the answer. I know I and most of my clients have Zoom, Microsoft, and other teams right there in their calendar. And some people may be resistant to do it. And I always say, hey, Donna, sorry, I already clicked the Zoom button. Are you okay with that? Because until I can see their face and see their body language, it's going to be a lot harder. And we'll go back into some social media. It's not selling on social media, it's connecting and beginning a non-salesy conversation. And I know you do a lot of that.
Right. Yeah, and Dave also mentioned a tool. I think this is what you were referring to before, but Vidyard, which I took a quick look at, and you can send messages via video. And again, I think we're all looking for that being able to read facial expressions now, and I think that's important in a virtual world. But I also agree with you, old schooling and picking up the phone. The other thing that I have found working more and more for me is I'm texting more people. If they're ghosting me, well, that's a whole other conversation.
That's another discussion.
Right. But I do text people, and I have a Ring Central app that allows me to keep my business separate from my personal. And I do find people are responding to text as well. So, I think the truth is, in any circumstance, you have to try multiple ways. And I think you also have to alternate. If you're only emailing.
Right. And right. I say, you're nicer about it than I am. If you're hiding behind email, it's not going to work for you.
Exactly.
And I agree with you in the text. It does make me cringe, Donna, a little bit. But you use the text or the other things to set the appointment, have a phone call.
Again, it's a matter of making the contact. And I think different people have different preferences, which we're now tracking in our CRM, how they prefer to be contacted: email, phone, text.
Good.
So this is a good one. And I'm going to so defer to you on this. How do you probe when a client is vague about when, whether, or how they want to proceed with a proposal?
So you saved the zingers for me. Is that what this is about? That's okay. So that's.
I'm a sales trainer.
Fair enough. Stump the trainer day. I love that. Do they really do? Are prospects really vague about things and non-committal? I don't know that I've experienced that.
Shocking.
I know. Yeah. So I'll not give the snarky answer as you and I. That's more fun. But from my perspective, I believe this is my expertise. So I'm going to control the process. I'm going to make them comfortable in that. But we're going to kind of set up the rules up front. So I may, if somebody who I believe is being a little wishy-washy, you had mentioned yesterday the term no mutual mystification. I want to be very clear on how this is going to go. So I may say somewhere along the sales process, Donna, can I share something with you that's been really effective, or at least so our customers tell us? And they always say, of course. Typically at the end of this meeting, one of two things are going to happen. Either we'll figure out that we've kind of missed the boat on this, or maybe we can't help you. And if that's the case, we'll shake hands, part friends, or typically what they prefer the next step is we'll write down the things that we've talked about that we're going to help fix, and we will have had a budget money conversation, and then we'll schedule a call to review that in person in the proposal, in a proposal or a draft agreement. How does that sound? And I would say 80% of the time they go, oh, well, we weren't sure what to do anyway, so that's a good idea. But we need to take control, and we can't let the buyers and our prospects control our process. It doesn't work well.
I agree. And I still, to this day, from my Sandler training, I still, in the beginning of my process, make sure they know it's okay to say no. Because you might like everything I say, and for whatever reason, you can't proceed. It's okay to say no. I will not take it personally. And I think we do have to get, that is one of the single greatest things I learned at Sandler.
That's a good one. I love that. And it takes a little while to believe yourself on that one, but that's having an abundance mentality. And I know from experience talking with you, you have that. And you can't be in fear of not getting the next deal. So it's all mindset when it comes to that, Donna, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we touched on this during the roundtable, but regarding LinkedIn selling, do you think it's saturated? Can we connect with centers of influence? Talk to us a little bit about the use of LinkedIn and some of your best practices.
Yeah, that's again, people ask that all the time. Social media, specifically LinkedIn. We have another rule in Sandler. I know you know this one. If the competition is doing it, stop doing it right away. What I'm not suggesting is stop using LinkedIn, but maybe not use it the way other people do with paid blasts and features and benefits. Why am I good? Why am I better than the other one? That also is not effective. But asking for referrals, that's probably my number one use of LinkedIn is, Donna, looks like you're connected. I think Dave went through that.
Yeah.
Asking for that referral. It's very low pressure. And again, it's about doing it the right way without putting pressure on anyone. And if they say no, they can't, that's great. There's another 7 million people that can ask for introductions on LinkedIn. Exactly. LinkedIn Navigator for research and getting alerts and seeing what's going on. I love watching how past clients or other people I know move. In our world, sales managers and salespeople.
True.
They're like, well, I won't use that. They move every couple of years. Mm-hmm. And if I can keep track of that, they're likely to take me with them.
That's great. That's great. the question also asked about centers of influence, and something I did last year. I spoke at a virtual conference out of Las Vegas, and honestly, I didn't budget enough time, so I didn't really participate the way I should have. And so there were about 30 speakers. And I reached out to all the speakers on LinkedIn, and I sent a nice message, and I said, hey, we were both speakers at this Women Power conference. Does it make sense? Another form of I don't suppose. Does it make sense to jump on a call and see how we might help each other? And I used, I happen to use Time Trade. I used a calendar link, and I got some great meetings out of it. And I've built some centers of influence and some referral partners. So I think you're right. If the competition is doing it, stop doing it immediately. But I think there's a way to use LinkedIn to nurture, to ask for referrals. And, we talked about it before with those whales. We want to be commenting on what they're posting. So it's really, to me, the main way we should be using LinkedIn is more about engagement than posting. Obviously, you want your post to be engaging, but it's equal parts posting and just following and commenting on the people that you want to do business with.
Yeah, and if we make them feel good, they're going to like us a little bit more, but we have to be genuine about it, certainly. And I think you hit on a really important one. The couple questions I saw were about selling. It's all about selling. LinkedIn, probably a third, maybe half of my LinkedIn time, and I spend maybe more time than I should. But it's connecting, like you said, with the other speakers or other like-minded people, or broadening my center of influence, me helping other people as a center of influence for them. And we talked about behaviors, or Dave talked about a lot about behaviors. I have 2 behaviors that I require of myself every week. I need to introduce 3 sets of people. I hit that 88% of the time, and I have to request an introduction to 3 people. I hit that 62% of the time, which is about 48% less than I should, but about 60% more than the rest of the population. So I think if we can get that I'm selling out of our heads, and I'm going to overuse the relationship thing, but meeting and introducing smart, like-minded people, you're going to sell more doing that than you are selling.
Absolutely. It's about serving. It's showing up as a servant leader and trying to help the next person along. And that's been a strategy that's worked for me. And I know it's worked for you as well. Okay. We have time for one more question.
One more.
And it might be obvious, but it's a good question. Do you foresee a blended mix of prospecting in the future? What does that look like?
And I've left my child in the car. I will say this with a perfectly straight face. Of course it is. And as I talk to my clients and other people in the marketplace, I had a conversation with a large company yesterday, and he said, I'm excited to be getting on an airplane, but I'm also relieved I don't have to do it as much, because we've just proven that we don't have to. They were up 19% in an industry that shouldn't be, because they got really smart about, I'll plug, they also are Sandler clients, but that's not why, because they did the behaviors, they shifted, they did Zoom, they built relationships, and they didn't bury their head in the sand because it was uncomfortable, right? You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So yes, of course it's going to shift a little bit. My belief, it's always been a blend, but we got stuck in our habits and our routines and what we're comfortable with, that somehow we forgot that maybe there's some other ways that work just as well. So that's my perhaps unpopular thought on that one, Donna.
Well, I completely agree with you. And I also think one of the reasons we should all be glad that it will continue to be a hybrid mix is geographically, all of our target markets just expanded. I mean, if you're in a professional service world, and which is pretty much where I live in the B2B world, our markets just expanded exponentially. It's just incredible, the opportunities that are now available to us. So I see it as very exciting, but I'm one of those crazy people that's always loved the whole sales process, because for me, and what I learned at Sandler is, it's not a sales process. It's a consultative assessment that uncovers a solution that works for both parties. Hey, and when that happens, it's great.
If you get tired of doing that, we can always use good Sandler trainers in the network, Donna.
I'll just send you referrals. How's that?
I'm okay with that too.
All right. Well, thank you, Cal. I really appreciate your time today. So everyone, join us each month for the NJBIA Sales and Marketing Roundtable powered by C3 Workplace and Paradigm Marketing and Design. Next month, we are May 18th, and we have Precious Williams, who is going to talk to us about pitch slapping our sales slump. So thank you all very much, and we will see you at the next roundtable.
Thanks for having me, Donna, very much.
Absolutely.
See you soon.